Okay, today what I did is I tested Context QA, which is a low-code, no-code test automation solution. It also has record and playback, which is cool, and it does some self-healing from what it records. I built a web application that is problematic for automation because it's missing some of the IDs and controls that normally make it easier to automate. And so what I want to see is how well Context QA handles that. See what kind of bugs I can find running scripts that Context QA creates from its recorder. So we're going to go take a look at the recording that I did of the session and see what that was like. The page that I'm dealing with is one of my own. It's ugly. I use this for testing, so I'm not trying to make it pretty. I'm just trying to make it functional. And what it does is it generates random data based on samples of objects defined in a schema. So, for example, I can say I want some data relates to network constructs, and I want to see random URLs. And when I do that, it gives me the definition of the schema, a textual definition of it, 10 random examples that conform to the schema, and then a visual representation of the schema. This is down below here. Okay, and if we look at the objects in the page, you'll see some of the issues that are probably going to make this difficult to work with. First off, in this table here, the random examples, these data points are random. They're and so you can't rely on the content being searchable later because it's by design supposed to be random. And when we look at what they look like inside the page via the developer console, you can see that they're all underneath a div, which we can see when I select it what that looks like on the left. But then each one of them is a span that has just the text inside the span, right? And there is no ID on the span. Okay. And likewise, this down here, the graphical representation of the schema, you'll notice that like I clicked on one of these. Let's just choose this one. I forgot which one I clicked on. This one that says network types, we can see right here, right? And this is inside of an SVG object, and we can see that it's a text object that has no ID. There's no identifier to say what it is. It's going to be hard to retrieve later. And if you look up at the parent of it, it's just an ID is like node and then a number. And likewise, the all of the objects inside of this are node number or edge number, which it's hard to know. Like I'd like to know its relationship to this based on the hierarchy of the schema, which is the data that so likely going to be a problem to test later. And this is the challenge that we're presented with, or Context QA's Chrome extension is presented with. So now that we're in here, I am going to basically just select a namespace, select a schema, get the UI to update with that data, and then I'm going to try some kind of manipulation of the objects in here to see if Context QA will at least record me clicking in those objects. Okay, it might not do that. Let's see what we get out of it. So let's run the Context QA extension, which I removed and installed it this morning so that I've got the most current version of it. So let's get that extension up. Let's log in. Okay, great. Close, and where did the extension go? There it is. Okay. And let's go to test case list. Actually, so I'm seeing something already. Maybe I'm a little confused about this. Inside of Context QA, I have created a workspace called Data Maker Scenario Test. I created that this morning for the purpose of um, doing this recording. And so that's what I intend to use. But I am not sure how to selector list. No, yeah, the selector list, test suite list. Oh, no. These are default test suite, Wayne's LinkedIn stuff, fruit order website, test case list. What is this? No, that's log out. Welcome to Context QA, test case list. I want to create a new test case using that workspace. What do they call that? It's a works. I believe they call it a workspace. Yeah, it's workspaces. And workspaces allow you to create collections of test cases that live together. And this one was created new, so there's nothing else in it. I'd like to put my stuff in there. But I don't see a way to select that from here. So that's going to be issue. How to select workspace from Context QA Chrome extension. I want to be able to put those in that workspace. Maybe there's some other workflow here, but maybe it'll happen when I hit create. Let's just hit create and see if we. Let's get my get my app up there again, and there. Let's say create test case title. Okay, let's call this Data Maker Manipulate UI and check output. Okay, let's call it that. I'm just gonna let's go use. Let's call it just user stories. I don't even know what I'd Yes, and I do want to create this test case. Okay. And let's go ahead and just recording start. Okay. Recording stop and start again. It does this a lot, the recording stop and start. I've reported this as an issue before to the team. Let's refresh the page to try to get it fresh. Okay, and it still is highlighting and stuff, so it still knows that these things are here. I am going to change schema examples to network types, and I am going to select something from the list of schema examples. Okay, and now I'm going to click here. I'll click here, and let's click there, right? Let's see what we've got. Click on, okay, it clicked on all of these. It clicked on label, that, and that. So we've got at least clicking on those things. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to change this to well-known URL, random versions of different URLs. I'm going to click on the last one, click on the first one. I'll click on our friends Amazon. Great. And let's stop the recording. Do you want to save these test steps? Okay. Okay, save the steps. Let's validate the steps. Validation will show you if the script that you've just recorded is going to have problems, at least on the initial outset. So that's I consider this being prompted by the product to do a better thing. And it was happy. It liked all of them. What do we get out of screens? What do we got for selectors? It's going to show us the different selectors that created. Okay. And what it's using to look at those, which is useful to know. Okay, yeah. It's we'll see what the fallback logic is like, but already I know that this is going to be problematic. You notice the internal text is what it used to identify the stuff that's in there, and that's randomly generated in the product by design. It's just something the product does. Now, Context QA has no idea of knowing that. Oh, by the way, okay, look, I was fidgeting, and I resized the Context QA Chrome extension window, and the table does not redraw, and it doesn't give me scroll bars. Okay, so let's record that as an issue. I mean, it's not a killer issue, although it does make the it does make the data, a little harder to read. We have to scroll vertically to get it. I was fidgeting, but I might have been scrolling wider to make it easier to look at some of the content, right? So that's a valid reason. Click on the selector below to highlight on the web page. So you should see if it's doing that. Click on the selector from the list below. So I didn't even notice this was here, but see how it says that? At least for me right now, whatever state I'm in, it's not selecting the item. Let's do that again. Copy that. I just accidentally removed that from the clipboard. Okay. Did not actually highlight the object on the web page when selected. Okay. And let's see where that's at. Selectors tab. Chrome extension. Text QA Chrome extension. Tab post recording, post save. Okay. I'm just making a few notes of the state I'm in case that affects the ability to reproduce it or not. I just remember where I'm at. Okay. Anyway, so these are some little things we've noticed here, which is good because we want to notice things like this. Let's go to Context QA and let's look at our test cases. Where are they? Okay, they're not showing up in this group. So maybe we need to go to one of the others. I hope it shows up. Yeah, okay, this is the one we just recorded now, right? Which I would have preferred being able to tell it what workspace to use when I launched the recorder. And these are indeed the steps that we chose. Let's take a look at those. More details. Let's look at look at more details, edit, and delete. Okay, let's look at the more details on this one. So, oh, look at this. Look at the ugly UI here. That's cool. What the problem is that the data that it's trying to present is wide enough that it's having some layout problems, which is fine here up on title, metadata, specs, description. The description is fine as well. It's just a verbatim of what we're clicking. But then when we get to other PW locator and such, the object is so wide that the column for the label is really squished. So I'm going to actually, I want to capture that. Okay, let's go ahead and close that. Real quick look, let's see what editing this guy is like. Okay, edit, click that, and now we've got select element, create element. Okay, this lets us say which element we're working with. We could create an element relative to it. I'm going to leave this alone for a moment. But it's saying, oh yeah, click on, and this is what it said to click on. It's got this big, it's got the entire contents of the object at the time I was testing. If you say this, schema name, URL, root schema object, object name. Oh yeah, okay, so this corresponds to the schema definition blob here, right? And if you look, this is what it said at that time, which would be consistent with what it's clicking on there. Scroll down and look. Click on this. Let's take a look at that. Click on this, and yeah, that's its name. Click on label. That's interesting. What's that one creating? Click on label. So I need to refamiliarize myself with how Context QA keeps track of things. I don't think it's saved these as elements that it can use again. But now that we've kind of looked around and found a few things, let's just run it. Let's say run. Execution started successfully. Execution initiated successfully. Okay, and here we are. That's that particular one. And we can now I'll let this wait out. If this takes up too much time, I'll edit down the video later. Let's take a look at this. Okay, it's got a UI of all the stuff it might be looking for, which is nice to know. Let's look at the run history. Oh, yeah, okay, so it executed successfully. Let's take a look at, let's watch the video. There it is, clicking around and through. Okay, so it indeed selected thing, or I mean, indeed moves the screen around. It test steps executed. Let's go to test steps executed. Let's look at what those look like. Okay, visit select option. No visual difference was found. No visual difference was found. I'm curious about golden HTML before code. Golden. click on that difference after code. Yes, this is fascinating to me. And this may be Context QA doing exactly what it wants to be doing. You notice that the content that it actually saw was different than the content that was recorded. So even though it's going for a very different piece of text, which by design, because the product treats this as random content, it still was able to, or says it was able to, click on that object. Click on label is interesting to me. What is that? Test step details. Okay, that's not very interesting there. Quote. Oh, okay, this is when it clicked on network types. Okay, this is when I was clicking inside the visualization, and it clicked on network types. Okay, and there it is. Let's go this. What was it looking for there? Select ID, option value. Okay, this is selecting in the this is selecting inside the list value, well-known URL. Select option value by well-known URL in this list. It's got a really weird selector that it's using. It's using like all of the values in the selection list for the ID there. Click on Facebook, click on YouTube, which, see, look at this. It was before code and after code Instagram. So there's some wackiness in here, but that's because of the way the thing is even supposed to behave. And then click on label, which is the one where I clicked on Amazon in the list because it includes Amazon as a possible thing in the schema to select. So some of this made sense what it's recording. I find it fascinating that it is able to do all of these steps without having a problem. And how was it able to do that? Context QA has fallback logic. The logic that it uses, that it shows you immediately in the UI, isn't the only version of information that collected. It collects other information. It collects the CSS selector. It collects the full path, the XPath. It looks for text that might be in the control. And if it doesn't find those, it falls back to using those. And it appears to have done that at this point in time. Oh, here's the trace view. So, for example, yeah. This shows you the logic that it was using to try to find the objects, right? And so if we look at this, we'll see it's looking for all these different controls that are inside my page. But here we go, page.isVisible. It's looking for this text. Now, I suspect that it did not get that, right? Because this is random. And I do not believe that was in there at the time. If we look at, this is the, I'm not going to look at that too closely, but that should not have been what was in there at the time. But it also is looking for this, which is the ID of the table cell where the random examples live. And instead of trying to find it by its context, it says, okay, let's look for the nth child, the 11th child of the table cell. And then it page.eval versus is visible, etc. Okay, so it's here it's trying to find the locator for that text again. It's tried to do a get by text, tried to do find it, this is where we're at least, this is kind of fun to do, which is look for how is it finding the object. And so it queues up a bunch of different ways to find the object, and then clicks one of them. And the one that it clicks is this one. I think that's a full path. I'm not up on my selectors, but they're the different kind of selectors that you can get. You can get them from the dev pane, or you can construct them yourself. This one, it's going from the body down into the table with the ID cell with the ID random examples. Okay, that's actually the most robust thing that it's doing here, is keying off that there is an ID that's a predecessor of the object we're looking for. And so it goes into the span that is located inside that cell and then gets the 11th child of it. And that's how it recorded my click, which is a fallback because this item up here didn't exist. So, it's smart. And in this case is actually a smart way to deal with what we're looking at. Let's go down here and let's look at network types. This is it, trying to find all of those, trying to find the dot image object. This is where the graphic is that represents the schema object. And so it says I want to find it, trying to find graph 0 node 5 and then get the 5th child of it, right? And then it tries several different ways to look at it. Right? It says get by text network types. And in this case, actually, if you look at the click, that's the one that it did. It said go to node 5 and get the child network types from node 5. So it's saying I'm going to find an ID because those tend to be robust. And then this text seemed to come back when I look for it again. So I'm going to click that, right? So it uses that as its fallback logic. Which, if now you can, it's easier to understand why the script executed and ran successfully, because it's got all these fallbacks to help it find the objects, even if the way it recorded it doesn't find it. Okay, so that's kind of interesting to look at. It seems to have done what it intends to do. Whether or not someone actually wants this kind of fallback logic is, for them to decide. But we're, in the very least, it did do what it says, which is robustly get through this page, even though the page itself doesn't provide good ways, robust and reliable ways to find what's in it. Like, it handles the random text stuff. It handles some of the objects that don't present as well as they could. Now, that said, I don't like this locator, and it's not because of context QA. This thing that says node 5, that doesn't say its relationship to the overall structure. If you look at the visual on the other side here, the thing that we're in is, you've got a root, the schema definition, the root object off the schema, and then a child of that root object, right? And this object is a sequence. This is a reference. It'd be nice to say that you're looking at the root object's third child, which is a reference, right? And actually, the thing that we clicked on is is the namespace under the reference object. These are things from my app itself, but they're meaningful to someone who's testing this because they're semantically related to the relationship for the data, whereas all of this information is just generic graphical object stuff. And that's not a bug in Context QA. That's not a fault of Context QA. That's because I've written an app that isn't very testable. So that's something to address in the app itself, The interesting thing is that if we were to change the app and the way that it renders these diagrams, it very easily break what we're looking at here. The object we're looking at might not be node 5. And its relationship to node 5 might change, right? Graphically, in terms of the layout engine goes. So that's something to look at for robustness with what we just recorded. And I might try that, changing things up just to see what this is like. But it's not a direct context QA issue to look at. All right, I've changed DataMaker so that the layout's a little bit different. Let's check, change the namespace and choose one of the examples. You'll see that under random examples, it looks different here. First off, I've got this stupid non-breaking space I mistyped, and it's displaying wrong, so that's my fault. But the more important part is that whereas this used to be just a set of spans in here, now what we have, if we look at it, is inside of the random examples table, the table that random examples is in, right? We have another table inside of that row that has the value for all of the URLs that we're going to. Okay, so that changed the logic of the layout quite a bit. So the thing that I am curious to see is what happens if this script that was built on the prior layout runs again. So just go ahead and launch that. So, and we'll wait a little bit for that to execute. Let's look at the run history. And, oh, we failed. Okay. That is actually nice to see that we failed. Let's look and see if the, does this say? The model's maximum content length is 4,097 tokens. However, you requested 4,586. That's different. I'm not sure what we're looking at there. Is that even in? I don't even know if that's context QA or if that's my app. That's an interesting thing to look at. Let's look at failed. Okay, analyze error. Could you please render about the console error and all right, test step details. It tried to click on that and yeah, I wound up clicking on the, I think it, or is that just the whole page? I'm not sure what this is. This is selecting a much larger object than it should have. I think it tried to find this that wasn't there on the page, and it fell back to something else. What does impact analysis even say? Data not found. Test executed. I'll tell you, I've dealt with this before. The analyze error isn't giving me anything valuable because there is no console error here to. Yeah, this looks like it's LLM generated. I'm just getting nothing out of that feature. But if we look at the run details, yeah, okay, so it tried to. Yeah, it's trying to look for the 11th child in random examples. It's trying to get by text that particular item, and it's asking via the locator if it's visible, and that is when it had an error. And I believe that is because the page's layout has been changed, or because this random value didn't come back, and and it fell back to something else. But we now have a critical failure on this because the layout of the page changed. And this is a combination of the fact that it's trying to use fallback logic to handle things, and we're working with a page that, by its nature, was not well designed to be automated against. So that's an interesting problem to deal with, and I'm definitely going to. Can I copy that? Actually, this is, how do I get this material? How do I the model's maximum length? Let's see if I can copy that. Copy. Okay, I can copy that. The call, the console. Cannot supervise. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. Let's. Can I copy this? I can copy that. Let's copy that. So